Welcome back. So this is a follow-on from my previous two videos where I showed how to write a fairly simple indicator. It's a 3-channel indicator, and I showed in one video how to write that for MetaTrader 5 and in the other for MetaTrader 4. I've got an image of that indicator on the chart here, and I labeled these lines the upper line, lower line, high line, and the low line. Maybe not the best names, but that's what I came up with. So today I'm going to be writing an expert advisor that uses this indicator, and the strategy that I'll be using will be such that when the price opens above the high line and closes below the high line, then I will sell at the open of the next candle, and I'll set the take profit at the low line. And you'll notice in this example that that take profit is actually higher than the low line was at the point where the trade was taken. So I'm going to have a floating take profit, and I'm going to enter a buy trade if the price opens below the low line and closes above that low line. And just as with the sell, I'm going to have a take profit when the price touches the high line. If I get time in today's video, I will also show a second version of the advisor. I might need to make that into a second video if this runs too long. I'm not making a separate video for MQL4. I'll write this initially for MQL5, then I'll show the changes for the MQL4 version. So let's get straight into the code now because there's quite a bit to cover in this. I've already opened the editor. You'll know how to do that if you saw the earlier video. And I have a folder called Orchard under Experts, and I've created another folder under that called Triple Channel Expert. And I've already created my first file, Triple Channel Expert 1.mq5. And inside here, I just have comments, standard properties, and the outline of the three major functions, OnInit, OnDinit, and OnTick. I'll be writing this from top to bottom, so there'll be points in here where I introduce functions that I will then write later. But I think the flow will look better if I just go from top to bottom in the code. Now to begin, I'm including the trade/trade.mqh file that's supplied with MetaTrader 5, and that gives me the ctrade class and the cPositionInfo class. So I'm just declaring variables trade and position info. I'm doing that because it's much easier to use the functions inside these classes than it is to access the raw functions. Now the first of the inputs, and that's the indicator path. Because I'm using a custom indicator, I need to know where to find that. There are alternative ways to do this, and I have already created videos about that, but for today I'm just adding that path in here, and this is the path where I actually have the indicator. So indicators, Orchard, triple channel D.ex5. And I'm making that an input so that if you do have this in a different location, all you have to do is change the input. And then I need the values that are the inputs to the custom indicator. And they are the period, the upper percent, and the lower percent. And now some controls for the expert advisor. This single trade, it is possible with this strategy that you would open multiple trades in the same direction at one time, because it's possible for the price to cross one of those boundaries, come back again and cross again. So this single trade, if that's true, then if there's already a trade open in that direction, the expert won't open a second. It can open two trades if they're in opposite directions, but it can't open more than one in the same direction if that is true. Use stop loss. This is an optional, so if you set a stop loss or not. And if you do have a stop loss, then this take profit ratio will be here. So remember from the description, I am setting the take profit based on one of those boundary levels. And so the stop loss will be a ratio of the take profit. A ratio of 1 means the stop loss is equal to the take profit. And a ratio of 2 would mean that the take profit is twice the size of the stop loss. So the stop loss would be half of the take profit. And remember that this take profit price moves, and so as that moves, the stop loss will also move to maintain that ratio. And then finally, this input trail take profit. Now that's the default that I described earlier, which is that the take profit will move with that boundary line. If you set that to false, then the take profit will stay wherever that line was when the trade was entered. And then finally, some standard values, the volume for each trade, the magic number, and a comment. In MetaTrader 5, when you're accessing a custom indicator or any indicator, you need a handle to that indicator. I only have one indicator here, so I'm just declaring an integer value that I'm calling handle. And I'm setting the number of the buffers. So there is the upper, high, low, and lower. Each one of those has a number associated with them, and they are just 0, 1, 2, and 3. And I'm just setting these to constant integers so that I won't change them through the code. And the final global variables that I have, a signal offset, and this indicates which bar that I'm looking at to get the values from that indicator so that I can compare. So what I'm saying is that if the price moved in bar number 1, which is the bar that's just closed. And then I'm also counting the trades. There's the buy count and the sell count, and that's so that I can handle this single trade flag. And now into the code, the first thing I do, trade.setExpertMagicNumber, INP magic. So every trade that I execute using that trade object now will set this magic number. And then I set up that handle to the indicator. The function is iCustom for a custom indicator. And the first argument is always the symbol, and I'm using the chart symbol. And the second is the time frame, and I'm using the chart time frame. Then I need the path to find that indicator, and that is from the input here, indicator path, and then the 3 arguments to the indicator. Now, I don't need to fill in all 3 of these because the iCustom will simply take the defaults from the indicator for any that are missing, but I'm just setting all 3 of them because I have allowed you to enter all of those here. And finally, I make a call to isNewBar. If you haven't seen that yet, then we'll get to that later, but I use it all the time. IsNewBar is simply my function that tells me if a new candle has just opened, and I call that once at the beginning because I don't want this to return a true if I happen to have started this expert in the middle of a candle. And finally, I just return init succeeded. If I wanted to, I could also test this handle to see if it came back with invalid handle, and then I would return an error condition if it's an invalid handle. In the onDinit function, I'm just going to release that handle now to free up the resources, and that's just indicator release and then passing in the handle. And then in onTick, where most of the work happens, the first thing I'm doing is, if not new bar, then return, because I'm only trading after the close of each candle. So if this is not the first tick after a new bar has opened, then I'll just return. Next, I want to get the values from the indicator. So I'm declaring double variables, upper value, high, low, and lower value. I'm calling a custom function, getBufferValue, and then I'm passing in the buffer number for each of those. So we'll get to that custom function later. But after that's been called, these will just hold the values of the indicator for each of these buffers at that offset. So remember this signal offset. So it will be the values from bar number 1. Now, comparing the price movement of the bar that's just closed. So to do that, I'm using MQL rates and an array of rates. So MQL rates is a structure. I'm calling the function copy rates for the chart symbol, the chart period, for 1 bar beginning at bar number 1. So I really only want 1 bar back, and that will populate that into the rates array, which at the end of all this will still only have 1 element. So the actual rates that I want, also structure MQL rates, equals rates array 0. And that will then give me inside this rates structure the open and close prices for bar number 1. I could have obtained those by simply calling I opened, I closed, but I just find this easier. Next, I'm calling another custom function, update trades. In this function, I will count the number of trades that are open, the buy and sell. I will update the take profit levels, and I'll update the stop loss for all of the trades that are already open. And we'll see that later. But to do that, I'm passing these upper, high, low, and lower value. At the end of that, I have all the information that I need to know whether I should be opening a new trade. So if the buy count is equal to 0, meaning I don't have any buy trades open, or I have not set that IMP single trade. So if not, then it means that I can open a buy trade. Then I have to test if the conditions are correct. So if rates open is less than the low value, so rates, remember here, so rates, if the open price for bar 1 is less than the low value and the close price is greater than the low value, then it means a candle has opened below and closed above. And then I'll just call this open position, and I'm opening a buy trade. And the take profit will be the high value. So I'm running between the two inner channel lines. And then I have the same for the sell. If the count is 0 or single trade is false, then if the rates open is above the high value and the rates close is below the high value, then I'm just going to open a sell trade and the take profit will be the low value. This open position is another custom function, so we'll get to all of those soon. So we'll begin with the update trades function. So update trades, it takes the 4 values as arguments, initializes the buy and the sell count to 0, and remember they are global variables, so after this function they'll be available for use in the other functions. I'm looping through for int I equals positions total minus 1, so that will loop through all of the positions while I is greater than or equal to 0 and I minus minus, so I'm counting backwards. Using the position info object, and it has a function called select by index where I can just pass in that index number I, and if that returns false then I couldn't find a position at that index for some reason, and so I'll just continue, which will mean that I go back to the next iteration of this loop. I also want to make sure that the symbol that I retrieved, so after this select by index, then if that's been true, position info will have a symbol, and if that's not the same as my chart symbol, then it's come from somewhere else, and the same if the magic number doesn't match. So in both of those cases, just continue. First step is to increment the counters. So if the position type from that position info is a buy, then I increment the buy count, and if it's a type sell, I increment the sell count. Now be very careful here. Position info dot position type, that's what you want. There is also a dot type that may show up if you're using the IntelliType, and dot type is completely different, so you want to make sure that you have this dot position type. So now I've updated the counters, and then if I have a trailing take profit set, I'm going to call another function, update take profit stop loss, and passing in those 4 values again. If trailing take profit is not set, then I not only have no need to update the take profit, but because the take profit can't change, there's no need to update the stop loss. So I just need to do that one check here and then call this function if this is true. Now that I have that, let's look at the update take profit stop loss function. Those 4 values, I get the open price, which is the open price from the position info. Now, I haven't passed position info in, but it's a global variable. So this will give me the price open from the currently selected position. The take profit price then, if the position type is a buy, then I want to use the high value, and if it's not a buy, then it must be a sell, so I want the low value. So that's the take profit price that I'm trying to set. And the stop loss price, another function here, get stop loss price, passing in the open price and the take profit price. So that will make sense in a moment, but that will give me the price where I want to set the stop loss. It will also take care of normalized double on the stop loss price. So you'll see here I have take profit price equals normalized double of the take profit price, and this digits bracket is a function in MetaTrader 5 that gives me the number of digits for the current chart symbol. So I call normalized double to make sure that this is an actual valid price point, but I have that function already inside the get stop loss price. That's why I haven't set the stop loss price to normalized double here. And then a quick test. If the take profit price is different to the current take profit price, which I get from positioninfo.takeprofit, or the stop loss price is different, then I'm going to call this trade.positionModify. I pass in the ticket number, position info ticket, and the new stop loss price and the new take profit price. So that will take care of updating the take profit to match the moving high or low value and the stop loss to match the ratio of that. Now let's have a look at this get stop loss price because that's where I handle that ratio. Get stop loss price takes the open and the take profit price. If the use stop loss flag is false, then I can just return a 0 for the stop loss price. Then I declare the double stop loss price is equal to open price minus the difference between the take profit and the open price divided by the take profit ratio. Now, it doesn't matter whether I'm buying or selling, this function is going to give the correct answer because depending whether I'm buying or selling, take profit price will be above or below the open price. So this will always be correct. And then, as I said, just the normalized double on the stop loss price here and return stop loss price. So that takes care of modifying the existing positions. I also have a function then for open position, and this accepts an order type. Let me show you again. Open position, order type, and the take profit price. Order type and the take profit price. I'm using the MQL tick structure here and then symbol info tick for the chart symbol, and that tick gives me the most recent price information for that symbol. So then the open price for the trade will depend on whether the type is a buy. So if the type is a type buy, then I'm going to be opening the trade at the ask price, tick.ask, and if not, then I'll open the trade at the bid price. The stop loss price then just calls that get stop loss price again, passing the open price and the take profit price. And then I need to normalize double on the open price and the take profit price here. But remember, stop loss price is already normalized. And then just trade dot position open, chart symbol, order type from the function call, trade volume, the open price, stop loss price is calculated, take profit price as it was calculated, and the trade comment that comes from the inputs. And now all that's left are two of the minor functions. I'll begin with the isNewBar function. I show this so often, you've probably already seen it, but I set a static variable date time, which initializes to 0, and that's prev time. Static variables retain the value that variable had the last time the function was called. And of course, the first time you call the function, they get this default value. So the first time it's called, previous time is 0. Then I have another date time, the current time, which I get from the itime function for the symbol, period, chart symbol, and period, bar number 0. So this just gives me the start time of the currently open bar. If prev time is equal to current time, then it means I'm inside the same bar that I called last time when prev time was set. So I can just return false. There has been no new bar. If I get to this line, then a new bar has happened. So I set prev time equal to the current time and just return true. And the other function, get buffer value, passing in the buffer number. I declare an array, which I'm just calling buffer, and then I call the copy buffer function that takes the handle for the indicator, the buffer number from here, the signal offset, so I want to begin at bar number 1, the number of bars that I want to get values back for, and I only want 1, and that will go into buffer, which is this array, and then I only need to return buffer 0. And that's everything for this Expert Advisor. I'll compile it just to make sure I don't have any errors and then run it, and you'll see that it's not a great Expert Advisor, but when I get to version 2 of this, then you'll see that with some minor changes, it can become much better. And as I said in the last video, this is the starter code for you to develop better strategies and basically a baseline skeleton code for you. That's an error on dinit. It actually has arguments for on dinit const int reason. Compiles. So let's go to MetaTrader and just run a sample of that. I've got the strategy tester set up. This is Orchard Triple Channel Expert, Expert 1, Euro USD 1 hour. I'm running for 2 years from January 23 to January 25, and I'm starting with $1,000. So far, I just had the default inputs. If you've seen the video on writing the indicator, you'll note that the default period was 10. I've set the default period here to 48 because it just makes more sense for this type of expert. But these are the default values to begin with. So I will be trailing the take profit. I'm not using a stop loss, and I can have multiple trades open. So let's just see how this goes. So running for 2 years, not a lot to show for it. The backtest result there, $98 profit. Not much on $1,000. If we change the inputs, let's say add a stop loss. We now have a slight improvement, profit of $114. Let's try changing one trade at a time, and I'll put that back to false for stop loss. And somewhere in between for that. So there are things you can adjust in here. I will just turn off that trail take profit for now. So I have one trade, no stop loss, and I'm not trailing the take profit. And you should see that this is not a good result. Now, I wanted to show that because of this huge drawdown that you get. By only taking one trade, as soon as a trade is opened and the price moves the wrong way, there is no stop loss, and this will basically continue until the price eventually comes all the way back to that original take profit price. When I'm setting the trail to take profit, it means that the take profit price can chase a bad trade. And so eventually that trade will close, even if it makes a loss by hitting the take profit. So that's all I want to show in that demonstration. Now, I did say I would show the MetaTrader 4 version of this as well. So just give me a moment to get set up for that. I'm in the MetaTrader 4 editor. All I've done so far is open that MQ5 file. Now I'm just going to save that as MQ4, and then I'll start making changes. First thing I'm going to add in here is property strict, which you should always use. The indicator path will still be correct, except that I'm calling the EX4 version now, so I just need to change that. The rest of these inputs will be fine, although the magic number in MetaTrader 4 is an integer, not a long. So I'll just change that. Now, these buffer numbers are all still correct, but there is no handle in MetaTrader 4. I'll just get rid of that handle. Yes, I also missed. There is no trade.mqh for MetaTrader 4, so get rid of those. And that means I don't have this trade to set the expert magic number. And as I said, there is no handle to set this custom. I do still call my isNewBar and then just return init succeeded. Now that means in onDinit, there is no handle, so I don't need to release it. In onTick, I'm still calling if not isNewBar return, and I'm still setting up the values by calling getBufferValue, but remember that's a custom function, so I'll change that function to handle the custom indicator differently. And all of the rest of this code in onTick doesn't need to change. We don't have positions in MetaTrader 4, but I can still call my function open position, so I'm going to leave that, but there will be changes inside the function. Now in the update trades function, we'll begin to see a few changes here because I don't have positions and I don't have this position info. So replace that line, if not order select, and then the index number, select by position, and I'm looking at mode trades compared to mode history. So I'm looking at the live trades there. I don't have position info, but I do have the functions order symbol and order magic number. For these counters, again, I don't have position info, but I do have an order type. And then this line is the same. Now in update, take profit stop loss, again, no position info. I can get the open price with the order open price function. For the take profit, I need to replace this position info.position type, and it's not position type by, it will be order type by. So just order type is equal to order type by. This take profit price is not equal to, I'm going to have to change that to order take profit, and I'll have to change this to order stop loss. And then I don't have trade.position modify, so it will be order modify, and the arguments are different. So let's just replace all of that. So order take profit, order stop loss, and the order modify function takes the ticket number, which I get from order ticket, and it has an order open price because this is the same function that you might use if you have a limit or stop order. You can't change the open price for a market order, but there is a placeholder there for it, and I just pass in the current open price. Then the stop loss price, the take profit price, and this is the expiry time. Now, because these are live trades, there is no point in setting an expiry time, so just pass 0 to that. Get stop loss price function. There's nothing in there that will change, so we can leave that. In open position, I'm already passing an order type, so there's no need to change that argument. There is no trade.position open. Instead, there is an order send function, which takes the symbol, the chart symbol, the type from here, volume, the open price, the slippage value, which I'm just setting to 0, the stop loss price, take profit price, the comment, and the magic number. Because we don't set that magic number in the trade object now, it's passed in the order send function. There's no change in isNewBar, but get buffer value now, we don't have this handle on the copy buffer function. So here the iCustom function is called directly each time you want to refer to a custom indicator. The arguments are very similar. There's the symbol and the time frame to begin with, the path to the indicator, and then the 3 arguments to that indicator. Then if I just scroll off, let me just wrap around here. But then the last 2 arguments are the buffer number and the bar number that you want the value for. So that just gives me a single value back, and I can just return that. So that is everything to make that change to an MQL4 version. I just make sure I haven't missed anything. Positions total, I missed one thing. That is orders total. Now you get these warnings, order modify should be checked and order send should be checked, and they should. I'm just not worrying about it for this example. So that's everything for the MQL4 version. So now you've seen how to write the code for MQL5. We've run some tests. I think this video has run long enough, so I'm going to take the second version of this indicator, or second version of this expert, and make a separate video for that. And it can generate better profits because I introduce things like reversion and multiple take profit points. So I'll be releasing that video very soon then. If this has been useful to you, then please click the like button. It helps the channel. If you want to see more videos, then click subscribe and click the bell icon and you'll be notified when new videos are released. Thank you for watching.